Hello guys, my name is Remik, and in today's video we'll cover the topic of how to properly set up the relationships entity framework core, so the one-to-one, one-to-many, and also many-to-many. What are the differences between all of those relationships, how to set up them in .NET 8 Web API. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, then please hit the subscribe button down below, write a comment, give me a like, and now we're going straight into the topic. Alright guys, we can start with defining the relationships entity framework core based on the restaurant context. So as you see on the picture, we have the one employee, and that employee has only one employee contact info. So here we'll have two tables, so the employees and also the employee contact infos. Here also, as you see, we have the customer, and that customer is reading the menu with the list of the menu items. And also between this customer and this customer, we have the reservation. So we can start defining all of those relationships. We can just draw them. As you see, we will have the one table called employees and one employee contact infos, where we will have, for instance, the address of that employee. So it will be the one-to-one relationship. Here we'll have the one table called menus and also the menu items. So only one menu will be related to the couple, or for instance one menu item, but is the relationship one to many of those menu items. And here the last relationship is the customer and also the reservation, because the customer can have multiple reservations and also the reservation can have multiple customers. So entity framework core will create for us the junction table that can have the foreign key for the customer and foreign key for the reservation. So it will be handled for us automatically by entity framework core. Alright guys, so now we'll start to define all of those relationships from the presentation in our code. I have created .NET 8 Web API, the very simple one, that is called restaurant.presentation, where all of those endpoints will be stored. Also, I have created the infrastructure layer where our migrations and DB context will be stored, and also the restaurant.domain, where I have already one directory called entities, and all our entities will be stored there, and then DB context will define them as the separate tables. So we will start with defining all of those relationships from the one-to-one relationship. So as we have discussed, we have employee and also employee contact info. So we can start with the employee. Alright guys, so at first we have to define who is in that one-to-one relationship, principal and also the dependent. So as you probably noticed, the employees is like the higher level in the hierarchy than the employee contact info, because employee contact info cannot live without having an employee linked to that employee contact info. So in that case, employee will be the principal and the employee contact info will be the dependent. And what does it actually mean? Employee will not have the obligatory employee contact info when it will be created. So employee contact info will need to have some kind of employee that then we can link when we'll create that employee contact info. So we'll start with defining the primary keys. So it will be the public int ID, and this public int ID will be in the employee contact info as well. We'll write something that will be unique for the employee, so it will be, for instance, the name, and employee contact info will be like the extension for the employee itself. So public string email, and also it could be public string phone number, and we have to make a relationship between all of those two tables. So at first we'll write public employee, that will be the navigation property, just to get all of employee properties. But the most important thing here is just to create the foreign key. And the foreign key that will link for us the employee contact info table and also the employee table. So it will be called employee ID, and that employee ID will be the same as this ID here. So when we will create employee contact info, then when we link the specific employee, then we will have this same employee ID. And now we have to define public employee contact info, and we don't need to create the foreign key for that, because the entity framework will know that this is the one-to-one relationship with the employee being the principal in that relationship. Now we'll cover the one-to-many relationship. So as you remember from the introduction of that video, we defined that the menu and the menu item will have that kind of the relationship. So I will create the first one and also the second one. And the same as before, we need the ID, so the primary key. So I will copy those two here. And for the menu, we'll have public string name and also public string description. And the menu item will have the public string name and also the price. And now the relationship. So the menu item will be like many of those in the one menu that will be created. So we have to take the ID of that menu and assign as the foreign key in the menu item table. So we'll write public int menu ID get set, also the navigation property menu, and in here we have to define public only iCollection menu items. And now the last relationship, so it will be between the reservation and also the customer. So we have to create those two entities, customer and the reservation. We'll have, of course, the public int ID as the primary key. In here, reservation will have, for instance, public date time date, and customer will have public string email and maybe also the name. Also the reservation will have some kind of the name. And now the relationship. So when it's many to many, so the many reservations can have many customers and vice versa, we'll create public iCollection of the customers get set. And now public iCollection of reservation and reservations get set. Now we can define in the app settings JSON the connection string, so the address for our entity framework to connect to our database. So I'll just type connection strings, and in here it will be called db connection string, and we'll use the SQLite, so I will just type data source will be equal to the restaurant.db. Now we'll create the db context in the infrastructure project. I'll inherit from the db context, and we have to search Nugget for that. So we'll have to install in the infrastructure project the entity framework core. Then also the design and the tools. So I will take those two nuggets as well. And now I will apply that entity framework core assignment in the namespace. Alright guys, so now we have to declare what kind of tables our entity framework core has to create. And it will be done in this restaurant DB context. So at first we have to define the constructor and pass the DB context options as the parameter. It will be called options to the entity framework base constructor. So we'll pass the options, and in here we'll have all of those entities will have separated tables. So I will create one by one. We have to install one more Nugget package for our infrastructure project where we have our DB context, and it will be called relational. So entity framework core.relational. I'll just install that one. And now we can set up the entity framework DB context and also the connection to our database in the presentation project, so the .NET 8 Web API. So at first, we have to also install a couple of the Nugget packages because we don't have any Nugget package related to the entity framework core yet in our .NET 8 Web API project. So we have to start with the entity framework core .SQLite. And I will install this one here. We have to install also the design Nugget package. And also the tools. We'll install that. And now we have to define our DB context here in the program CS. So I'll type builder.services.add DB context, and we have to pass restaurant DB context from the infrastructure layer. And now we'll pass the options, and the options then we'll type use SQLite just to define what kind of the database provider we will have. And now inside of the parameters we'll type builder.configuration.get connection string, and the connection string was called DB connection string. Yes, so in the program CS we have to define this, and I will just type comma as well. So our DB context will be added here, and we have to open up the terminal and now perform our first migration. So I will type .NET EF migrations add will be the initial one, so init. And now we have to specify where we have our .NET 8 Web API located. So it will be called restaurant.presentation, and then with the p flag where our DB context is located. So restaurant.infrastructure. As you see, it has been done. If you would like just to undo this migration, then as this is displayed on the screen, you can just remove that migration. And now we can expand the migrations directory that was created for us by the efcore. And now we'll just go to the initial migration file. And now we'll go through the initial migration file that was created for us by the efcore. As you see, we have the app method that is used by the efcore to perform this migration, to perform what is written down here. As you see, we have create table statements with the specific name of the table, what kind of columns it has, what kind of types, and also if it's nullable or not, and also the constraints of the primary keys, and also the foreign keys when that foreign key was assigned as the constraint. So we'll just go through. We have the customers, employees, menus with only the primary keys and specific columns. We have the reservation that had a many-to-many relationship to the customer. And now we have the employee contact infos. So it was a one-to-one relationship to the employee table. So we have the ID, email, phone number, employee ID, and this employee ID, this is the constraint. So as you see, we have the foreign key with the column of the employee ID, and on delete, it will be deleted on cascade in that case. We have also the menu items, and of course the menu item was with the relationship to menu with the one-to-many. So for sure, yeah, it has menu ID as the foreign key. And here we have also the junction table. So as you remember in the many-to-many relationship, I have said that we need the junction table between two tables. So we have customer reservation, and we see that we have obligatory, so nullable set as false, customers ID and reservations ID foreign keys. Also we have a couple of the indexes, and then we have also the down method. So when you would like just to remove this migration, just to go to the state before applying this migration, so this method down will be applied, and you see all of those drop table statements will be performed. Alright, and now we are ready to type in the console the special command for the entity framework core to create for us the database. So it will be .NET EF database update. We have to specify where our .NET 8 Web API is located. So it will be restaurant.presentation, and the p flag will be for the DB context location. So restaurant.infrastructure. as you see, the database was created for us properly. We have the restaurant.db here, and we can just apply and connect to the database in Rider. So I'll just expand all the tables that were created. So as you see, I'll just expand this a little bit. Here we have the customer reservation, so that junction table, we have the 2 foreign keys. And as you see, the customer's ID foreign key is the same as the customer's primary key. And also for the reservations, we have the customers with only the primary key, employee contact infos. As you remember, it is one-to-one relationship between the employees and employee contact infos. So of course we have the foreign key to the employee's ID primary key. Employees will have only the primary key, and the menu and the menu items. So menu items have the foreign key to the menu's ID primary key, and also here we have nothing. And now we can go one by one just to create some data for all of those tables. So we can just start with the employees. So I'll just create the employee emp1. I'll submit it, and I'll create the employee contact info and employee contact info. We'll have an email, so I'll just type whatever here and intentionally just leave the employee ID as null. And yeah, as you see, we have the constraint failed, so it has to be specified. The employee ID is just obligatory for the employee contact info to be created. So I will just type 1 and I will submit it. And as you see, properly the employee contact info was created. Now we can check if we can create some new employee contact info and assign to the same employee ID. It should not be possible, but we have to double check if it will be possible or not. So I'll assign the same employee ID. I'll just submit. As you see, unique constraint failed. So it has to be unique. So that means that we have properly one-to-one relationship established between those two tables. Now we'll cover the one-to-many relationship. So we'll just create one menu with the name menu1. And also with some kind of description, and menu items. We'll create 2 of those. So I'll just type the name menu item 1 with the price with the price 50, and also I'll create another one, so it will be menu item 2, the price of 40. And as you see, we can assign to the same menu 2 items, so we have one-to-many relationship. We'll just also create some select statement just to retrieve the information about also the menu items that were assigned to the same menu. So I will just type select everything from menus, and we can just type join menu items on that. And as we see here, we have the menu's ID, menu's name, and also the item name. So item name 1 and 2, and the prices and the menu ID, so the foreign key for that. And now the last relationship to cover was many-to-many relationship between the customer and the reservation, and everything will be handled here in this customer reservation junction table that was created by the efcore. So I'll create one customer and also one reservation. So And now in this junction table, we'll just type 1, 1, so it will be linked together. But we can also, not as we saw in this one-to-one relationship, we can just assign that the customer 1 will be also related to the reservation 2, let's say. So we'll just create one more reservation 2 with the date 2015. And we'll see that those two were linked together as well. So the customer's ID is in the reservation 1 and also in the reservation 2. So the first one is linked together. Alright guys, so that's the end of this video. The relationships have been properly discussed and set up in our .NET 8 Web API. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, then please hit the subscribe button down below, write a comment, give me a like, and see you in the next one.